Hi, everyone. I'm Lynda Hartigan, the director of the Peabody Essex Museum. And I'm here today to introduce our PEM Prize. We created the prize to honor individuals who work at this intersection between creative expression and community engagement. It is important that museums really engage with their communities in order to be true forces in people's lives. We are thrilled to be awarding the PEM Prize to Carlos Garaicoa, a multidisciplinary artist. Carlos has created a project called Partitura, and it is definitely a multimedia installation. Carlos has worked with 40 individual recordings of street musicians in Madrid and Bilbao in Spain. He then worked with the composer Esteban Puebla to create a virtuoso composition out of this incredible range of street and musical traditions and skill levels. It certainly celebrates that great unity can come from incredible diversity, and because it is both musical and visual, it also demonstrates the possibilities that come from collaboration across cultures and across genres.
Partitura means score, the paper. Street musicians for me is something that you find everywhere. It's like a common language from the cities. Basically, they are musicians from Madrid and Bilbao. Many times the sound of certain musicians is really create the personality of a certain corners of the city. I wanted to create a new score with these fragments of the city. You will see each musician in the stand still, they are there and they are playing what they really play on the street. And then at the very end you have this score and the animation. You have a guy in Bilbao and a guy in Madrid that they never know each other and they're playing something. And you get this moment of freedom that you can see that it's a kind of jazz moment. I started to bring material to the composer that hate me. He was like, this is impossible, I cannot do nothing with that. Because many of these people are playing whatever they want. But for my surprise, when we was in the process, they really works. And then it works because he made them work. There's a moment to walk through different cities and see these people and realize that they are professionals and amateurs, different people playing music and create the world of sound. I realized myself that with the music you can be very open to create something new.
It's now my pleasure to invite you to listen in as Trevor Smith, the museum's Associate Director for Multisensory Experiences and our Curator of the Present Tense, talks with Carlos about the Partitura project and our plans for the PEM Prize in May.
So Carlos, it's been absolutely great having you here this week. The last time that you were here was in March 2020 when we installed Partitura, and now you've returned to us as the inaugural recipient of the PEM Prize. And we've been spending the last couple of days exploring what you are going to be doing for the PEM Prize. Why don't you talk to us about street musicians and this idea that you've always had to kind of extend Partitura?
Yeah, I always thought that the Partitura have different aspects that we can explore because it's a very open field of experimentation with music and sound and images in general. I thought that we've been always talking about possibility to bring street musicians to the museum, to generate a kind of parallel activities that people like have a big resonance on the piece itself. Because I believe the piece is is part of that open field that is the streets. My inspiration was, for this piece was my constant contact with musicians in the street and in different cities. And then to have this piece here and as well to being, to get this prize, this fantastic prize that you are giving to me, I think is give as well the opportunity to coming back to some of these details, that is normally stay out of the work. A piece like that, we've been discussing about doing the records, bringing musicians, doing a concert alive. We have a big range of possibilities, and I probably for the first time we will realize that we will do that, and then I do believe that will be a very good expansion of the work. So, unfortunately, art and visual arts is going to a museum, you show it, and it's there forever, no?
It becomes too exclusive somehow.
Exactly, and this is something that you have to see, and it's a closed circle, and nothing more happens. And thanks God, these pieces give us another opportunity. Give us the opportunity to have a paper to play with 6 or 7 musicians or 5, whatever happens, and as well these opportunities of the street music festival that have different possibilities as well. We've been exploring here the possibility of activate the city. Of course, it's a wonderful idea, but as well we've been talking about activate the museum itself, bringing these voices, these street voices, to the inside the museum, not as a piece of art, it's not as in the way they are right now, the way they act on the streets. And I think that's beautiful, because at the very end, museums are for people. Museums are to host not only what we call the high art or the historical art that depends, you have a lot, as well as to bring contemporary voices and to bring popular voices. And Partitura is really an example of how this popular music and this street music can be turned into something probably unexpected. After you witness this piece and what is possible to do it with this street music, you start to see the musicians in another way, completely different. No? And,
we had a beautiful experience this morning of somebody coming up to us and said that their child had seen Partitura, and then was out in the street and saw a street musician. And they said, "Oh, it's like Partitura."
Exactly. I think that's one of the possibilities the art always have, to make the people read the reality as a fiction in a way, or not a fiction only, as well as something sensitive. Walking the city and having relation with certain aspects of the city, I am able to create something new that coming from the urban field, and create a new situation, a new environment where people can reflect over politics, over history, about urban things, about designing, about writing, about music, and this piece is that for me. It's a way to move the spectators from the regular walking, and then seeing this moment that there is a fragment that you can enter to another reality. And street musicians do that as well. After I do this piece, I even pay more attention to the street musicians than before. It's a beautiful, because really you discover so many talents and amazing things on the streets.
So you probably first started thinking about Partitura 10 years ago, something like that. And when you first presented Partitura, you had wanted to do this gesture of bringing the musicians from the street and into the museum, and that didn't happen. So this is actually the first time that's going to happen. And I really love, too, that by working with the musicians around us, that the work becomes a kind of a portrait of our city.
I think One of the most important things for the art in general, for the contemporary art, is the context. And I always been very aware of the context of where I show things and when I do things. And I think what you are doing here now, bringing this musician, is giving a context to my piece. Because it's the demonstration that these street musicians are so important and it's so global. And they are speaking the language, in every point of the earth, any countries. It's so global.
A kind of universal language.
I think it's this universal language, but as well, it's like the graffiti in the way, Graffitis took a long time to get recognized by the museums and by the collectors and by whatever that is a kind of art. It's an art, even it's a kind of, guerrilla art. It's something that happened very outside the system, etc. Street musicians in the way at the Sen, because we are not talking only here about, the musicians from the art school of music that going for the weekend to play and get some money. We are talking about people who sometimes are playing a very, trans way to do music. It's not only the traditional musicians. Sometimes the people experimenting as well in the street with different instruments, with different objects. And at the same time, they are part of the kind of underground existence of the cities that I think they are so important, because they are the real things that happen in the city without planning, without budget, is what happens outside the art. It's this transversal, this, I don't know how to say, but these outsiders. And then I believe it's so important, to find the right people, the right musicians, the right, artists that they are in the streets here, around here in Boston and in the area of selling, and have this moment, I think it will be a joy to have this. And as well, I think will bring a connection. It's a very popular situation to the museum.
So to produce Partitura, you worked or collaborated with a composer, Esteban Puebla. Esteban has been working on a new extension for this project that is going to be premiered here as part of the PEM Prize. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
I realized that we have the opportunity when we present the exhibition, the piece itself, try to do a concert in the parallel situation, and bring another kind of we can say, a spectacle to people, and increase in the way they work. And I've been following Esteban for 4 years after I did the piece, 3 years or something, in order to get a partitura, a score that wrote it for specific musicians. As well, it's very difficult task.
So basically, to take this, what in effect in the Partitura installation is a kind of a soundtrack that's the collage of these many different performances, and to then translate that into a score.
Yeah, I asked him to translate in I don't know how many musicians, nothing. I never put a number on that. And then he came with this proposal. There are 6 musicians, I believe. I only have the opportunity to see 3 musicians that work with us a lot, with my wife. When we receive the score, the papers, they play for, just to see how it looks. And then now
and you sent me the video.
Yeah, I sent you this video
of that moment of them, in effect, reading the score for playing it for the first time.
Is giving the life to something coming from the street and arriving to musicians. And then we are planning to do that together. I think will increase the piece itself. We've been able to do a vinyl disc about the music of Esteban. One side of the disc with a street musician, and one side of the disc with the other professional musicians. I think will be a very beautiful experience. No? And then, I am happy that always happens something new with the work. I think it's how we've been talking during this day. I think it's a work with so many possibilities. And to bring a score as an alive concert to people, and specifically for a group of musicians, to the Boston area, that is a music place. So I believe it's a music city. It's one of the biggest cities where you have a fantastic musician studies and incredible schools. I think will be very special. And that's thanks to the PEM Prize as well. That's happened. So.
Thank you, Carlos.